Welcome to The Secret Truth. I'm George Butler, and sitting to my right is Larry Riviera, and he's done quite a bit of work over the years on the JFK assassination. Larry, how long have you been working in this area?
The assassination itself, or the areas of my expertise? The assassination itself, about 40 years.
Okay, and I know you're into Blender 3D photo analysis. Is that right? Is that one of your specialties that you brought to bear in your research?
Well, Blender is the #1 three-dimensional computer graphics imaging software in the world right now, and it's been around since around 2003, and it is a collaborative effort with many programmers around the world, and it's right now used by just about every programmer to do games, to create three-dimensional scenes, compositions, and that kind of thing. What we can do with Blender is create three-dimensional scenes from photographs. Okay?
Oh, okay. And so what you've done is take some of the photographs in Dealey Plaza, right?
Well,
and use this software to enhance on a three-dimensional basis the effects.
That's right. You can go to blender.org and download the program for free. A word of caution: the program has a little bit of a steep learning curve. However, if you go to YouTube and you enter Blender tutorials, you'll be able to find several very good teachers who explain step by step how to navigate through Blender. Because at first, when you first run the program, the interface looks a little bit intimidating, so to speak.
Right.
And
some of these software packages are that way, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, the Blender has replaced what we used to know as in the 80s and 90s as computer-aided design, used by architects and engineers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was an architectural tool at one time, and then people have applied it to other types of...
It can be used as an architectural tool.
Like 3D rendering of buildings, walking around them and things like that.
Exactly.
And so what interesting tidbits or details did you come up with?
Well, what we have done is we have created an actual three-dimensional scene of Dealey Plaza. With all the buildings, Elm Street, the grassy knoll, the pergola, the triple underpass. And what we're able to do with this model, George, is actually go in there.
Oh, I see. In other words, it's just like the viewer was actually on the ground almost and could experience almost a three-dimensional, real-life time.
Not almost. Not almost. Not almost. You do.
Yeah, okay, you do. Okay. And so you relive that scene at that time.
You can go in there.
My gosh, that's interesting.
What you do is you set up cameras and you work with objects. And these objects you model. Okay?
Oh, okay.
By using certain functions in Blender. For example, to model an object, we alter faces, edges, and vertices. Okay. And as we model our scene, what we do is we use reference images. Okay. For example, the Robert Cutler map.
Okay.
That many people are familiar with, because Robert Cutler was an architect, and he was a first-generation JFK researcher, and he actually made the first architectural rendering of Dealey Plaza. And what's so important about Robert Cutler is that he did this at a time when Dealey Plaza had not been altered. Okay, a lot of the landmarks are in different positions.
That's right. They've done some landscaping changes around there, haven't they?
Absolutely.
And so it wasn't exactly today. It's not exactly the way it appeared on that day, November 22nd, 1963.
That's right. And I'll give you a couple of examples. The lampposts, for example.
Oh, are in different places.
That's right. Right now they are at the base of the grassy knoll.
Okay.
On November 22nd, they were beyond the sidewalk, okay, right at the curb.
Okay.
Now, why is this important? Well, when you look at the Zapruder film, if you go over there and you try to replicate it, reenact it,
Oh, I see.
the lampposts are not going to fall, in the same place. Okay.
Right.
So
right.
for researchers
for
to study-
timing and things like that, it's important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if with Blender we can restore that, okay, and show you exactly what it would have looked like, okay, on November the 22nd. I can go on with other examples. For example, the Texas School Book Depository entranceway at the top of the steps on November 22nd only measured 3 feet.
Okay.
It's been remodeled, I believe in the 1980s when the county took over the building, they remodeled the entrance and they pushed that doorway 6 feet inwards.
Oh, okay.
To now, the length now is 9 feet and 2 inches.
Oh, okay.
And many other examples of, for example, the trees. If you look at the Cutler map, you see a lot more trees in Dealey Plaza than there are today.
Oh, okay.
So all these little details are important if people are going to try to go in there and Dealey Plaza and study the actual area and the scene itself. And for example, you can go and study possible trajectories, and what we do in Blender.
Oh, that's right, where the shooters might have been.
That's right.
And the limbs and might have been in the way or not, and the trees and so forth.
Well, I'll give you a good example. A lot of people think that the frontal shot came from the grassy knoll.
Right.
And I have to disagree completely. If you go there and you've studied, the trajectory of that shot that came through the windshield and hit JFK in the throat.
Oh, yes, that would be more.
Well, at that point, the grassy knoll is totally to his right. So that does
yes,
not work.
it wouldn't have been that way. We've been more in front of the limousine.
Exactly.
Maybe from above where the railroad tracks were, or someone.
Not from above, but from below.
Below,
on
at
Commerce.
a lower.
That's right.
Trajectory.
At Commerce, at the curb there, where if you go, it's what we call a cubby hole.
Right.
There is an area where there's a sidewalk and there's a column and holes, that go all the way through the underpass.
Yes.
Which provide a perfect cover.
I
for a
see, hidden
sniper.
away in a dark place.
Exactly.
And then they could have fired in.
And if you go there, and you look at the cars as they come at you,
Right.
okay, you will see that the cars are completely stationary for about 3 or 4 seconds because they're coming right at you.
There has been speculation.
Which would have been a
did
slam.
the limousine actually stop or not?
Oh yeah.
It did stop.
Yeah.
Isn't that what the Zapruder film was edited for, to keep that out of the public knowledge?
Yeah.
And they came around that corner and slowed way down. Is that true too?
Yeah.
Because they needed a target that was real slow moving, and then it did stop momentarily.
Well, I'll give you an example of how Blender confirms how fast the limousine motorcade was going.
Right.
If you look at the Alton's photograph, you see the angle of what's presented in the photograph. Okay. Well, in Blender, in order to get that same angle, the only way to do it is by placing Alton's in the middle of Elm Street. I mean, in the middle of the left lane of Elm Street. Okay. Which means that if he was on the street, he was confident enough to be there knowing that the motorcade was coming slow enough that the motorcycles weren't going to run him over.
Right. Well, in fact, they were told not to go past the rear wheel or something. Was that?
Those are the escort.
Motorcycle police were told to stay back.
Yeah, those are the escort.
And usually there was I think a media flatbed truck that preceded the limousine and had film and stuff moving.
It should have been, but it wasn't.
That was not there.
That's right.
They didn't want that in.
Yeah, the flag. That was sent all the way to the back of the motorcade.
Right.
But what I'm trying.
They structured the thing. The people that planned this.
Yeah, but so to get back to my point about Blender, it's a very useful tool for researchers. I'm just breaking
now, can you
ground
on this 3D Blender? Can you put the sun in there? And now that's important. The shadows at the time.
Thank you. That is such an
important. Like great painters, like Rembrandt, was a master of lighting in his paintings.
That's right.
And so reconstructing this through Blender, you can put that shade.
You hit it right. You hit the nail right on the head, George. Because in order to create the shadows that we see in the Zapruder film and in the Alton's photograph, we have to position the sun to reflect, to create those shadows onto the street, onto the grass.
I see.
Okay, and as we continue to create our rendering, our scene, we're able to position the sun
I
to
see.
create those shadows and actually replicate the whole scene as it was at 12:30 p.m. on November 22nd, 1963.
My gosh, Larry, you've really done a great service in rendering this in a whole new way that others had never thought about. But I want to
Thank you, George. I want to just recommend if
Yeah.
you're going to get into Blender, there's one really good teacher on YouTube. His name is Blender Guru. And you go to YouTube and search for Blender Guru, Andrew Price. He's an Australian. And as far as I'm concerned, he is the best. And
Do you have some of this on a website now yourself? Some of your work?
Yes, I have it on my blog.
Tell us what that is. Give us that website.
Yeah, on my blog is merdist.com/WP for WordPress.
Okay.
And you'll be able to see some of the stuff that we've been able to do with Blender there.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being with
You're
us here,
welcome.
Larry Riviera, and more. Thank you for all your hard work
Thank you,
in the
George.
JFK
Oh, it's always a
Assassination
pleasure, George.
Researcher.
Thank
You're one of
you.
the lead researchers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Too kind.
Okay.
Thank you.